What's up everybody? In this video, I'm going to show you how I made these graveyard pedestals for my Halloween display. Each one has its own unique details, and together they serve as the focal point in my yard. What's up everybody? And today I am continuing with my Halloween builds involving this foam board. I'm going to be making these 3 pedestals that my pumpkins are going to sit on top of. This build feels a little special to me because I'm kind of recreating these pedestals that I had built when I was doing decorating in high school. And it's kind of like paying homage to like my previous self, my younger self, my inner child. But anyway, I am super excited for this build, so let's get started. I'm starting with tracing my pedestals onto this foam insulation board. It's lightweight, easy to cut, and it paints well. I am so sweaty. Also, when I was filming this, I forgot to put the cover on my microphone, so the audio sounds a little spooky. But don't worry, this gets resolved at this timestamp. It is hot and it is humid. Alrighty, now that my pedestal sides are traced out, I can go in and start cutting them. For this, I am getting a table because I am tired of doing this on the ground. So I'm going to be building these pedestals out of this foam insulation board. I have a 1-inch thick piece and I have a 2-inch thick piece. So the 2-inch thick piece is from my tombstones project that I worked on last time. And since I didn't use that entire piece of foam, I wanted to utilize it as best as I could. So I'm using the 2-inch sections for the front face, and then I'm using this 1-inch section for the sides. As of now, the plan is to keep the back of the pedestals open, and this is so I can conceal any of the equipment, lights, or anything else that I don't want to be seen. To cut this foam, I'm going to be using my jigsaw here with my wood finish smooth blade. Oh, that's flimsy. Alrighty, now that I have all of my foam cut out, I'm going to move forward with the assembly. And since I'm making 3 of these pedestals and all 3 of them are basically going to be the same, I'm just going to focus on one of them for the rest of the video. Hello again. That might have been 3 seconds for you guys, but for me, that was 6 months. Turns out, life gets really busy sometimes. Anyway, happy March. Let's continue with the build. Our next step is going to be building the framework of the pedestals themselves. Now, where I live, we get pretty intense monsoon weather with very strong winds, and I want to build these pedestals so they can withstand that weather. So I will be building a framework for these out of wood. It's probably overkill, but I'd rather they survive the season. The storms we get literally destroyed my shade structure for my garden, and I don't want it to do that for my decorations. Alrighty, let's get building. I'm making these frames out of 2x2s and 1x3s. No particular reason, I just thought these would hold together best. I'm not being super meticulous with how I build these, I honestly just need them to hold together for the season. Some of the wood boards are bent, that's okay. It's not the highest quality wood, that's okay. My main thing is just building a more solid structure than just insulation foam. I just realized that would have been so much faster just to put a stop block on my miter saw rather than like actually going out and measuring each one. But oh well, learn as you go. I'm cutting these all to length with my miter saw, and then I'll come through and screw them together. I cut out enough pieces to build 3 pedestals, but I will only need these pieces for the one that I'm building in this video. Alrighty, now that we have all of the wood cut, I'm going to start assembling the inner framework of each pedestal. I'm using the 2x2s for the vertical supports, and then the 1x2s for the bracing. This wood split pretty easily, so I am pre-drilling all of my screw holes to make the assembly as easy as possible. And now I can move forward screwing everything together. I'm not gonna do wood glue because I just realized that I don't have any and I don't feel like going to the hardware store again. Alrighty, it's been a long day. I only messed up on this once, but that was enough. Now that I have the front and the back framework done, I'm going to attach them together with these side braces here to form the internal column that the foam will attach to. I'm using the same 1x2s here and screwing them into the 2x2s. As you can see, I held onto this with my hand directly behind where I'm screwing into. I was only doing this because I'd measured my screws and I knew they wouldn't poke through the other side and go into my fingers. Screwing all of these together helped correct some of the wood boards that were bent. I had to use some force to get them to line up properly, but once they were all screwed together, they held up quite nicely. Now that I have the framework for the pedestal built, it is time to attach the foam to the framework. And I'll be doing this with a foam adhesive that is specifically designed for adhesing foam to other surfaces. Adhesing is a word. Now. I did want to mark where I needed to put the foam adhesive, just so I wouldn't miss and waste the glue, and also it looks nice for the video. And this was nice because the weight of the wooden framework held it down while the glue dried, so I didn't have to use any bracing, and making sure it's aligned as straight as possible. And sometimes you gotta bring in reinforcements. Hey, they're good looking. I put masking tape on this to hopefully hold it in place while it dries, so I'm just gonna let this hang out here while it dries. Now that I have my foam attached to the wooden framework, I'm going to go in and start doing some of the detail work. This will include some trim on the top and the bottom, and then I'm going to do a little bit of carving. I wanted to go with a simple border design for these pedestals. I'm not an artist, so I wanted to keep it within the realm of what I was capable of doing. On previous projects, I've said I like to keep things simple, and this is an example of that simplicity. And then I'm using my Dremel tool to come back and carve it. Again, I'm not perfect, so I'm using this board as a guide to carve out my border lines. Using the Dremel worked great, but it left the edges of my borders rough, so I came in with this sandpaper to smooth out the edges. This will help tremendously when we paint this. I'm tracing out this design just using a Sharpie. I'm cutting these trim pieces with my jigsaw, and then I'm gluing them back to the foam using the foam adhesive that we used earlier. To hold the trim pieces in place while the adhesive is drying, I'm going to use toothpicks just stuck into the foam. I'll be honest, using the toothpicks made this harder than it needed to be. I had to make sure the piece was perfectly aligned before I impaled it with the toothpicks, and even then, the piece didn't fit on completely straight. In the future, I would skip this and just use the masking tape again. And while that dries, I'm going to get to work tracing the cracks that I'm going to carve out. One of the things I love about creating holiday projects is customizing them to be uniquely yours. When I was building this, Scream 6 had just come out, and I wanted to make a cool Ghostface homage. Now that that adhesive has cured, I'm going to go in and fix some of the mistakes I made when I was putting these together. Some of these edges didn't come together as smooth as I would have liked them to, So I'm gonna go in with an orbit sander and just sand them flush with each other. Oops, gotta fix this guy here. I used a utility knife to carve the cracks. On the top of the crack, I held the knife at a 90-degree angle to the foam board. And then on the bottom of the crack, I held it at a 45-degree angle. This helped give some definition to the cracks. And any pieces that were stuck, I carved out with a screwdriver. Additionally, I'm going to take the foam adhesive we used earlier and just fill in all of these cracks. That way when I seal and paint these, there won't be these like giant cracks in it. And since I have extra adhesive, I'm just going to go in and fill these seams as well. See the vision now? And lastly, I will glue the top cap to the top of the pedestal to complete the construction. Again, trying to make things align as best as I can. See, it's interesting. You guys have already seen what this looks like finished. I haven't. This is the first time I'm actually seeing this kind of come together. I guess the moral of the story is trust yourself, trust the process, and solve problems along the way. Isn't that right, Jack? Yeah. To get a stone texture in the foam, I'm going to use a heat gun and water. I'll spray the foam down with water, then use the heat gun directed towards the water on the foam. This causes the foam to warp in a way that gives it this really cool stone texture. It usually takes a minute or so of heat to actually get the foam to warp, so patience is key here. And I'll just repeat this on all 3 sides of the foam. It'll discolor a bit, but we'll fix that soon. I did a little bit of work on this off camera. There were these cracks in the insulation foam that when I hit it with the heat gun, it opened the cracks and it just didn't look good. So I came in with the foam adhesive and I just sealed up all of those cracks. So hopefully now, when I go and seal it with the masonry sealer, it's all cohesive, or at least mostly cohesive. Speaking of the masonry sealer, now that I have everything put together, patched up, textured, carved out, I'm going to go through and I'm going to seal it with this masonry sealer. This is going to do 2 things. 1, it's going to seal the foam and help weatherproof it. And 2, it has a little bit of a grit to it, so that's going to give it just a little bit more of a sandy texture. I'll start by dry locking inside the cracks and the border that I carved. This sealer goes on thick and the paintbrush lines are clearly visible, so I tried to keep this in mind when I was covering the foam. On the areas where I filled in the cracks with the foam adhesive, it left these scars when I put the masonry sealer on top. To try and hide these, I applied a much heavier coat of the sealer on these areas, then I blotted at it to give it more texture. This worked in some areas, and it didn't work in others. Next time I would pay a little more attention when I was fixing the cracks to make sure the adhesive didn't rise up as much. And if we come in close here, we can see the sandy texture the masonry sealer gives. My allergies are like punching me in the face today. Today's the day we start painting. I'm going to start by painting inside all of the carvings that I did with black to highlight the design that I did. I didn't have a special technique here, just to paint inside the border I carved out. Since this will be painted to look weathered soon, I wasn't too meticulous with making sure I stayed inside the lines of the border. If it got outside of the border, it would just add to the aged look I was going for. Next, I'm going to start working on the different layers of paint. to give this a realistic look. I'm going to start with a base layer of black, completely watered down, just so I can get rid of all the white that came from the Drylok, and that'll give me a good starting point. After that, I'm going to start layering different colors in different washes to kind of give it that old stone look. For the different colors for each wash, I'm just going to use black, brown, and tan. There's really no reason to get super fancy with the colors. Super basic earth tones will be enough. This process takes time, it takes a lot of layers, so let's get going. I started with a base layer of black to tone down the brightness from the masonry sealer. This was to give me a starting point for the other colors. And because I was getting impatient, I used my heat gun to speed along the drying process. Next, I went in with a tan wash to start bringing out the highlights. I used this technique where I would apply the wash, then I would tilt the pedestal to let the wash run down the side organically. I think this helped the paint job look a little more natural and a lot less like a person was doing it. A little too much wash got into the border areas, so I dabbed it out with a paper towel. I want this to look old and weathered, but I still want those borders to stand out a little bit. In some areas where the edges were a little harsh, I sprayed them with water to soften them, which helped it blend a lot better. Each wash layer I did got progressively darker. That way I wasn't trying to paint over black paint with a light tan wash. This made the colors stand out and blend a lot better. While the paint was still wet, in some areas I dabbed the tan wash over the darker colors to give it this really cool warped effect. There were some areas where the wash dripped down the side of the pedestal. If this happens, you can spray the wash down with more water and essentially erase it. Not gonna lie, I'm a little hungover right now. We went to a concert last night, had a few drinks, screamed a lot, and that's why my voice sounds super deep. Baby, lock them doors and turn them lights down low. Anyway, a couple of tips and notes for when you're painting these. The washes are gonna go on a lot darker than they're gonna dry. So don't be too afraid to make your wash just a little darker because it will get much lighter as it dries. And also that drying time takes forever. When you have the wash on and the colors are running, it's very tempting just to keep tweaking it, but just don't. Practice patience, let it dry, and if you don't like it after that, you can tweak it then. Overall, super happy with how this turned out. It does look like I have a couple of spots where the paint ran and I wasn't able to catch it with the water before it dried, but that shouldn't be a problem to fix. Other than that, I'm just gonna touch up a couple of areas and call it good. And now for the final details. I'm hanging wreaths on the front of the pedestals, so I drilled a hole and stuck a wire through. Then lastly, I'm gluing this cross brace to the bottom so I can set a brick inside the pedestals to weigh them down. You know, we started this project on the floor and slightly out of focus, so it only makes sense that we end the project on the floor, slightly out of focus. Whew, it has been a journey to get here. I think it's been like 8 or 9 months total from the day I started this, but that's okay because we finished it. Here's the results, and I think they came out pretty good. So let's take a look at these outside. I really didn't like the exposed backs of these, so I cut a piece of foam, painted it black, and stuck it on with Velcro. This did not stick well, so next time I would just screw them on. But anyway, thank you guys for following along on this journey / tutorial / experience. I've lost sight of what this video was supposed to be in the beginning. Thank you guys so much for watching. Have a safe, have a fun, and have a happy Halloween, and I'll see you in the next video.